We're looking at question 3 on the AP Statistics Midterm Review. Now, in this one, you're actually going to get an answer for question 4 on this video as well without knowing it. So we're going to have to address question 3, and you will get the answer to question 4 by doing number 3 properly. So you're welcome. You get 2 answers off this video. Here we're given a table. We have the number of registered Democrats, Republicans, and others of the political party based off of male and female. And we're asked in question 3 to find the proportion of males that are registered as Democrats. And that's what we need to look at, is what are we trying to find? And in this case, the things that stick out is the proportion of males registered as Democrats. So one thing I'm going to go into is, this is conditional distribution. Now I have to figure out which is going to be the row. Am I looking at Democrats as my total? Am I looking at males as my total? And then, what am I looking at inside that total? But I'm going to say one thing first. We're looking at proportion. And so when we're looking at proportion, I want to keep in mind that value should be between 0 and 1. And I say that because if you look at choices A and B, those answers are greater than 1. They're not decimals between 0 and 1. If I want a proportion, I want to see what is the probability. Is it 0.15? Is it 0.30? Is it 0.33? So in that case, because we're asked for a proportion, a probability, I know it can't be A and B because those numbers are greater than 1. And I say that because choice A is an actual trick in the problem. And so keep that in mind. I'll explain how choice A is a trick, but it would have eliminated that by kind of thinking through what is a proportion. Now, the total, if I think about this, I have to rephrase this question. Of all the males, what proportion of them are registered as Democrats? That's really what this question is asking, is of all the males, what proportion of those are registered as Democrats, which means my total for this conditional distribution is based off of the male column, the 300, the 500, and the 200. So this is conditional distribution. Question 4, hint. Now we have to figure out how it's going to work. And so I'm going to base it off of the column for males. And so I have here 1,000 is the total for the males. Of all the males, of all 1,000, what proportion of those are registered as Democrats? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the Democrat row, and that has 300 of them there. And so if I have 300 Democrats out of the 1,000, that's going to give me a probability of 300 out of 1,000, which is 0.30. The answer is D. However, look at choice A. If you look at choice A was 300. Do you see how A uses a count from the table? It doesn't use the proportion from the table. So that's something to keep in mind here, is that we would have crossed out right away because we know proportions between 0 and 1. And A is a count, it's not a proportion. Interesting. Now, this was thinking of it from a chapter 1 point of view because these questions are from chapter 1. I could also think of it from a chapter 4 point of view. If I think of it from a chapter 4 point of view, we also looked at conditional distributions in chapter 4, but we called them conditional probabilities. And so in this case, if I want to find the proportion of all the males, what proportion are registered as Democrats, really what I'm dealing with is a conditional probability. Is what's the probability of Democrats, registered Democrats, given that I'm looking at the males. So that's looking at the intersection of Democrats and males. You see how that's 300? If I look at the intersection, that's the intersection of all the males, 1,000. So I can use that to help me out as well. Even though it's chapter 1 question, chapter 4 conditional distributions from chapter 1 relates to conditional probability in chapter 4. So I could have approached this from a chapter 4 perspective as well. Now here's my advice. My advice is really how some of the choices came about. And I already told you how A came about. A came about because it's a count. It's the number of male Democrats, and we're asked for proportion. Now, B and C are really interesting because B represents the answer as a percent, not a proportion. Think about that. Our answer in D is 0.30. Answer B is 30. That's a percent, not a proportion. Interesting, that little tiny detail on what is a proportion between 0 and 1 allows us to cancel out A and B. Now, choice C, that 0.33, That's if you used the wrong total. If I said what proportion of Democrats are males. So answer C is based off if I chose the wrong information. If I said, hey, of my 900 registered Democrats, 300 of them are male. If I do 300 divided by 900, I'm going to get 0.33333. And that would have given me choice C. So you can see how understanding what is your total that you're taking from is going to actually help you out as well in this. So that is question 3, and hopefully by saying conditional distribution and that you're looking at of all the males, what proportion are Democrats, is going to help you with your answer in question 4.